Welcome to Power to the Pod from Millennial Activist. I am Liz, a mom and everyday citizen helping you turn concern into action, even with a busy schedule. Each week, we'll cover 3 headlines, spotlight an activist organization, celebrate a policy win, and take a deeper dive into one important issue, all while sharing practical ways you can get involved from home. This week, as we celebrate Mexican Independence Day, our deep dive focuses on immigrant rights, why they matter, how enforcement is changing, and what you and your community can do to stay safe and support your neighbors. Our mission is simple: empower you to take action, make an impact, and create change in your community and beyond. Let's dive in. It's time for news you should know. Last week, the country witnessed 2 shocking acts of violence, all on the same day. At Utah Valley University, conservative activist Charlie Kirk was fatally shot during a campus event. The suspect, a 22-year-old named Tyler Robinson, was arrested after a 33-hour manhunt. Authorities say Robinson came from a Republican-leaning family, but had recently shifted in ideology. Utah's governor suggested he may have adopted more left-leaning views, while investigators found bullet casings engraved with anti-fascist slogans and meme references. A clear motive has not been yet confirmed. Despite that, Republican leaders, including President Donald Trump and Representative Nancy Mace, quickly blamed Democrats, with Fox News amplifying those claims. The rhetoric triggered a surge in threats, including bomb threats at several HBCUs and the DNC headquarters, as well as a rallying battle cry waging war against the left from many of Charlie's conservative followers. That very same day in Colorado, 16-year-old Desmond Hawley opened fire at Evergreen High School outside of Denver, injuring 2 classmates before fatally shooting himself. Authorities confirmed Hawley had been radicalized online, adopting neo-Nazi ideology and glorifying past mass shooters. His social media accounts contained white supremacist symbols, anti-Semitic content, and references to Columbine and other massacres. Why it matters. These tragedies reveal the dangerous ways extremist ideologies, whether fueled by far-right movements or violent anti-fascist rhetoric, can lead to bloodshed. They also show how political leaders and media rushing to weaponize events only inflames fear and division. If we want to stop the cycle, we need to tone down the rhetoric and recognize that most of us share more similarities than differences, despite what the algorithm or political leaders might want us to believe. On September 12th, during a raid in Chicago's Little Village neighborhood, ICE agents detained William Jimenez, a Venezuelan national, leaving his young children at home. The incident sparked immediate protests and raised urgent questions about how families are treated during immigration enforcement operations. Community leaders and lawmakers are calling for a transparent investigation into the incident. This is not an isolated case. Across Chicago, Los Angeles, and other U.S. cities, immigrant parents have been detained, sometimes violently, leaving children alone or in the care of neighbors. Advocates have documented multiple incidents in recent months where children were left unsupervised for hours following enforcement actions. These situations highlight the human impact of aggressive ICE operations and the need for policies that protect vulnerable family members. Why it matters. These cases illustrate the real-life consequences of immigration raids beyond the adults targeted. Children face trauma, fear, and uncertainty when left alone, and the community bears the burden of ensuring their safety. It underscores the urgent need for accountable enforcement practices and strong local support networks. On September 8th, the U.S. Supreme Court issued a 6-3 decision lifting restrictions on federal immigration enforcement in Los Angeles, permitting the resumption of roving patrols by ICE and Border Patrol agents. These patrols allow agents to stop individuals based on factors such as race, language, occupation, or location, even without specific evidence of unlawful status. Justice Brett Kavanaugh, writing for the majority, stated that these factors could contribute to reasonable suspicion when considered alongside other circumstances. The ruling overturns the lower court decision that had temporarily blocked such enforcement tactics, citing concerns over racial profiling and constitutional violations. Justice Sonia Sotomayor dissented, emphasizing that the decision effectively legalizes racial profiling, particularly against Latino communities. California officials, including Governor Gavin Newsom and Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass, have expressed strong opposition, warning that the decision could exacerbate fear and mistrust within immigrant communities and disrupt local economies. Advocacy groups are mobilizing to challenge the ruling in lower courts and to support affected individuals. Why it matters. Removing limits on patrols could erode trust in law enforcement, increase racial profiling, intimidate immigrant communities, and undermine local cooperation with police, potentially creating public safety risks. State policy win. Now for some good news. New Mexico just became the first state in the country to guarantee free childcare for every family permanently. This comes after voters approved a constitutional amendment in 2022, and now it's fully in effect. The program uses funding from the state's oil and gas revenues to support families, expand access to early education, and strengthen the childcare workforce. Families are expected to save an average of $12,000 per child annually, a significant relief given that infant and preschool childcare can cost up to 36% of a family's income. Governor Michelle Lujan Grisham emphasizes that this investment ensures every child has the opportunity to grow and thrive, supporting both families and the state's economy. Why it matters. New Mexico's bold move sets a precedent for other states, demonstrating that universal access to early childhood education is both achievable and impactful. And imagine what you could do with $12,000 more annually. Activist Spotlight. This week's Activist Spotlight goes to immigrant rights groups in Chicago who have been mobilizing rapid response teams to monitor and document ICE activity. These volunteers show up when raids happen, they film, connect families with legal aid, and help make sure children aren't left alone while adults are taken into detention. They help families navigate chaotic situations and ensure no one disappears quietly into the system. Chicagoans also stood up against the recent National Guard deployment. After public pressure, the Guard pulled out and shifted operations to Memphis, who, honestly, might want to ask Chicago for the blueprint. Why it matters. Local organizing shows that communities can push back, protect each other, and actually change outcomes, from preventing family separations to ensuring kids aren't left on their own after raids. It's time for our deep dive segment. This week's segment is on immigrants' rights. What would you do if you were stopped by ICE, whether you are a U.S. citizen or not? Would your family know what to do? On this week's deep dive, we explore these questions and the state of immigrant rights in the U.S. This deep dive was inspired by the Supreme Court's ruling on roving patrols last week. I'm a Mexican-American U.S. citizen, and I also happen to have tan skin, which apparently is enough to draw suspicion during these kinds of raids. While talking with my husband, I started wondering out loud what I would do if I were mistakenly detained by ICE. Then I turned the question on him. What would you do? Neither of us had an answer. That's why this episode matters. It's for every Latino who's ever felt the weight of that question hanging over them, for every immigrant out there who is feeling helpless, and for every family like mine, and maybe like yours, who deserves to feel prepared instead of powerless when facing a system that too often mistakes identity for guilt. Across the country, immigrants are facing shrinking protections and increasingly aggressive enforcement. In cities like Los Angeles and Chicago, we've seen vicious and violent tactics, raids, detentions, and the use of force in ways that are deeply traumatizing for individuals and families. Even people who are following the law, holding proper documentation, attending school, or simply going to work can suddenly find themselves in dangerous and confusing situations. So, what should you do if you're stopped by ICE? Even US citizens should know their rights. You can ask if you are free to leave. You have the right to remain silent. You can request an attorney, and you should avoid signing anything without legal counsel. For immigrants, understanding your rights isn't just about avoiding arrest. It's about protecting yourself and your loved ones, and knowing how to respond quickly if a detainment happens. This is where community organizing and local support networks matter. Groups like Rapid Response Teams in Chicago show us that while the system can be hostile, communities can push back. They intervene to provide legal aid, document abuses, and guide families through the chaos. Families who have these supports are better equipped to handle emergencies, and those same networks reduce the fear and isolation that enforcement operations are designed to create. But it's not just about reacting, it's about preparation. Families should identify trusted contacts, share legal information in advance, and know which organizations to reach out to immediately. Simple steps like having copies of documents stored safely with a friend or neighbor, or keeping a list of attorneys ready can make an enormous difference in a crisis. The broader legal environment only makes things harder. The Supreme Court's recent ruling allowing roving patrols in Los Angeles means that law enforcement now has broader discretion to stop people based on factors like race, language, or location, even without evidence of unlawful status. This creates uncertainty for immigrant communities and complicates everyday life, from commuting to school, to picking up groceries, to just existing in public. And here's a critical point. If you think you might be targeted, don't rely on facial recognition or fingerprint access on your phone. Use a passcode instead. Agents are not allowed to go through your phone without a warrant, but biometric unlocks can make it easier for them to gain access to your contacts and private information. Advocacy and activism remain vital. Local groups aren't just providing immediate help. They're documenting patterns of abuse, sharing knowledge, pushing cases through the courts, and lobbying policymakers to restore protections. Every protest, every letter to a lawmaker, every public awareness campaign matters. The stakes here go beyond immigrant families. When trust between communities and law enforcement breaks down, public safety suffers for everyone. People become less likely to report crimes, seek medical care, or cooperate with authorities, and that ripple effect harms entire cities. So what practical tools can actually help if you or someone you love are ever stopped by ICE? A great place to start is with Know Your Rights cards. There are 2 free versions that are especially useful. First, the Immigrant Legal Resource Center's I Have Rights Red Card is wallet-sized, multilingual, and designed to help you assert your rights, like remaining silent and refusing entry without a warrant. Second, the National Immigration Law Center's Red Card. This one also explains your rights during ICE stops and detentions, and it's available in multiple languages. Keeping one of these cards on you or in your family's backpacks or wallets can make a huge difference if an emergency arises. And then there are the organizations themselves, dedicated to this work. There's the Immigrant Legal Resource Center, the National Immigration Law Center, the ACLU Immigrant Rights Project, and United We Dream. There's also some hotlines available, such as the National Immigration Detention Hotline, United We Dream Hotline, and the Immigration Case Status Line. I will add the websites and hotline numbers to the episode's description, and will also be posting a toolkit as a carousel over on my Instagram at PowerToThePodOfficial and at Millennial Activist, so be sure to check it out. Let's get this information out there, as it can be a lifeline for someone who might need it, and the more we share, the stronger and safer our communities become. At the end of the day, immigrant rights are human rights. Most of us want the same things: safety for our families, the chance to thrive, and the dignity of being treated fairly. The more we recognize those shared hopes, the harder it becomes for anyone to divide us. Standing up for each other isn't just about one community, it's about all of us. Actionable steps and what you can do. We've covered some heavy topics this week, from political violence to immigration enforcement to policy wins in childcare. So, how can you take meaningful action even from home? Here's a roadmap across 4 levels. National and federal. Stay informed and make your voice heard. Contact your members of Congress about federal issues like immigration enforcement, gun reform, and school safety. Tools like 5calls.org provide scripts, your representative's contact info, and talking points to make calls quick and effective. Even 1 call a week adds up. Call or email your federal reps when policies threaten immigrant communities or public safety. Highlight personal stories or local examples to make your message resonate. State and policy level. Number 2. At the state level, you can engage with state legislators about issues like New Mexico's childcare program, school safety laws, or state-level immigrant protections. Track pending legislation, attend public hearings, or submit comments online. Every small action shapes policy outcomes in your state. Number 3. At the local and community level, you can support grassroots organizations in your area. For example, rapid response teams in Chicago show how volunteers protect families during ICE activity. Local groups need people to help organize, document, or share resources. Attend town halls, community meetings, or neighborhood safety forums to stay connected and amplify your community's voice. Number 4. On a personal and individual level, start by checking in with friends and family. Share resources like Know Your Rights cards, hotlines, and local legal contacts. Call out misinformation if you see it online or in conversation. Being a reliable source for fact-based information matters. I'll be joining a Moms Demand Action call for gun reform and a call for immigrants' rights. Why it matters. Action at every level, national, state, local, and personal, compounds. It's not about doing everything at once. Even one call, one conversation, one act of solidarity can make a tangible difference. That's it for this week's episode of Power to the Pod. Thank you so much for tuning in and spending a little time learning, reflecting, and getting ready to take action. It's easy to feel like we're being pushed further apart, but the truth is, we share more common ground than we think. The loudest voices, online and in politics, often thrive on keeping us divided. Paying attention to misinformation, even in conversations with friends, is one small but powerful way to push back. You don't have to do everything to make a difference. Even small steps, a call, a message, or just sharing what you know, add up when we do them together. I'm Liz, and I'll be back next week with more headlines, another deep dive, and practical actions you can take right from home. Until then, stay hopeful, stay engaged, and keep building the change you want to see.